1. The power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. 2. Absence of subjection to foreign domination or despotic government. Freedom is not universal. Even within our own society, there are individuals and groups whose perception of freedom varies. Both the perception and allocation of the right to freedom can be dramatically different between different groups in society. The government is answerable for making sure all citizens have the right to freedom. But how do those in power secretly restrict us?
We're very worried about people being taken to court for essentially having a fit of bad temper and saying things in an intemperate way. I think that's wrong, because people start to look over their shoulders and wonder whether they're actually allowed to express the opinions that they actually hold. I'm also worried about the kind of people who are getting these convictions. Often they are people with political views, and it's a very bad thing when people start to be told that they can't say things because their political views are offending others.
The trouble is that when things are posted on things like Twitter and Facebook, is that they're there for all to see and for people to share. And so there definitely becomes an element of mob rule, and then pressure is put on the police forces to act on that rather than abiding to the legal system that we currently have.
What this law has been used for is two particular ways. Firstly, to stifle inconvenient political views. So views which are against Islam, views which are against Christianity, views which are against the equality of homosexuals. So people who say that sort of stuff can be arrested. The second way it's been used is by the police, and they use it as a sort of catch-all to arrest you if everything else fails.
Those who've been caught out include someone who insulted Scientology by calling it a dangerous cult, and wait for it, someone who called a police horse gay.
I'd been a victim too when I protested against Islamist extremists who were advocating killing gay people and women who have sex outside of marriage. I was prosecuted for this alleged crime of insult. Really, in a free society, insults are not nice, but they shouldn't be criminal offences.
It's the essence of democracy. The essence of democracy isn't people wandering around saying flopsy bunnies, and smiling at one another. It's about informed debate about a whole range of issues, and nothing should be off limits.
When the Christian owners of a hotel in the northwest of England entered into a debate about Islam with a Muslim guest, little did they realise they would be prosecuted for a crime. Police arrested Ben and Sharon Vogelenzang, who run the Bounty House Hotel in Liverpool, after a Muslim woman complained that she was offended by comments made back in March of this year. Because the legal case is ongoing, the couple cannot comment publicly. According to newspaper reports, the debate here at the hotel involved discussion of whether Jesus was the Son of God or just a minor prophet of Islam. Newspapers also reported that the debate included comments that Muhammad was a warlord and that Muslim dress for women was a form of bondage.
Azhar Ahmed from Dewsbury was given a community sentence for posting angry comments about the death of British soldiers on Facebook. A day earlier, Matthew Woods went to jail for off-colour jokes about the missing schoolgirl April Jones. The comments, both made online, were unpleasant to most people, but should they also be illegal? Many of the high-profile cases brought to trial so far use a little-known part of the law. Section 127 of the Communications Act makes it an offence to post menacing or grossly offensive material online.
If they want that to be properly American, they want to get one of the nerdy kids to come in with a rifle.
So, while a comedian can make an offensive joke on stage or even down the pub, exactly the same material online could, in theory, get someone arrested. Newsnight asked every force for harassment cases involving Facebook and Twitter. In 2010, there were over 2,000 investigations, rising to almost 2,500 in 2011. That's now more than 50 a week across the UK.
Now, if you're looking for a dog's breakfast, look no further, because this afternoon we were presented with version 3 of the Prime Minister's response to the Leveson inquiry, and even now it's unclear exactly what Parliament as a whole meant. At 2:30 this morning, Labour, the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives agreed on clauses to be tacked onto a bill going through Parliament to make the newspapers behave better. But they went further than Lord Leveson had wanted to go and decided the internet needs the benefit of their wisdom too.
In his report, Lord Justice Leveson specifically ruled out trying to regulate the internet. This is what he said. The internet does not claim to operate by express ethical standards, so that bloggers and others may, if they choose, act with impunity. Because, he went on, people will not assume that what they read on the internet is trustworthy or that it carries any particular assurance or accuracy. It need be no more than one person's view.
So much for what the Leveson report said. But the Royal Charter, that remember all the parties have signed up to, goes far further. Listen to what it says.
It covers a website containing news-related material, whether or not related to a newspaper or magazine, and news-related material is defined very widely indeed. According to the Royal Charter, it includes not just news, but opinion about matters relating to the news or current affairs, or gossip about celebrities or other public figures or other persons in the news. That seems very wide-ranging indeed.
Britain has enjoyed press freedom for 317 years. It was finally won from that lot in 1695. Many have literally died to protect it ever since. So why are so many people want to give it away now? First, what is press freedom? Well, it isn't the right to hack phones, blag medical records, wrongly wreck good people's reputations, trample all over the privacy of the innocent. The UK already has laws against that. Libel laws, privacy laws and criminal laws. In the last 18 months, over 30 journalists, myself included, have been arrested. Press freedom is, though, the right to publicly demand answers to inconvenient questions that those in power really don't want aired. That's why an unsavoury alliance of celebrities, politicians and lawyers are desperately trying to con you into giving it up. They call for legally controlled statutory regulation of the media, while claiming that somehow the press can still remain independent. It is simply a lie. The words state control and free press simply cannot live in the same sentence. If it happens, the politicians will get the press they want, not the press they deserve, a press they can control. Statutory regulation is the thin end of the wedge. Once in place, politicians will be free to amend, to change, tweak, clarify, fix those press laws to silence all those questions they don't want to answer. A free press does make mistakes. It does get things wrong, including its behaviour. That can hurt, but the alternative is worse. To paraphrase, democracy is the worst form of government until you consider the others. Well, it's the same with self-regulation and press freedom. Let them steal it at your peril.
As we go about our lives, we're all being watched. CCTV cameras owned by councils have multiplied so fast across the UK, official estimates have been left far behind. Added to the private cameras like these on the Bed nightclub in Leeds, there's a greater chance than ever that someone somewhere is watching you. In total, councils have spent £500 million on CCTV over the past 4 years. But are we any safer? Do we even feel any safer? You're being watched now. Does it make you feel any safer?
Not particularly. Just makes me feel more watched.
I don't really mind being watched if it means that if somebody attacks me that I'm safer, that somebody's going to be able to find who it is.
I'd feel safer if I saw a policeman walking by now and again, I think.
The research by Big Brother Watch found UK councils have more than 51,000 CCTV cameras. That's more than half as many again as the Association of Chief Police Officers thought there were. Birmingham Council spent the most, £14 million since 2007, followed by Westminster and Leeds. The total cost would cover the wages of more than 4,000 police officers.
Britain is one of the most watched countries anywhere in the world, with 1% of the world's population and 20% of the world's CCTV cameras, and that does carry a large cost to our privacy. But more worryingly, the report shows how between local authorities there are hugely differing approaches and how many cameras they have, how much money they spend viewing the footage and operating them, and we think actually we need a national review now to establish whether councils are actually using their cameras properly, because some clearly aren't.
Privacy campaigners say CCTV is out of control. The authorities say it's making us safer. What is certain is we're being watched more than ever before.
You are being watched. With 77 fixed cameras alone, the people of Croydon are already among the most filmed in London. So how would they feel if asked to put one inside their own homes?
That's a bit too Big Brother for me, I think. It's a real invasion of your privacy, so I'm absolutely not for that.
In your house, it's not acceptable because that's your own privacy, your house. If it's outside, on your street, basically, I think you should have it on your street. So.
If the CCTV's here, then maybe I could walk down the street like in more of a safer mind.
Why do they have to put it in the house, though? Why not just outside the house?
That's the question, really. What do you think of it?
Invasion of privacy.
The worry is that if we start to make it acceptable to hide more and more cameras, because right now cameras are noted out in the street, you can see where they are, they have signs often, but if we're going to start hiding cameras inside people's homes, then we will create this atmosphere where you never know when you are being filmed, and that is a way of making people not feel free. That's being spied upon. It's creepy to live in a world like that.
It could be described as the ultimate in neighbourhood watch, an army of internet users watching live CCTV pictures all over the world on the lookout for crime. That's the aim of a London company which is offering cash rewards to anyone who spots crime here in the capital, the city with more cameras than anywhere else in the world. But civil liberties groups say it's a worrying development.
This is an example of the kind of thing that a user would expect to see when they log in and they view the 4 cameras. The viewer has seen an incident occur on one of the screens and they can then hit the report button.
We're already the most surveyed country in the world, and now what we're seeing is a private company asking private individuals to spy on each other.
All right, so private CCTV cameras far outnumber those installed by the police and local authorities, so it does challenge the idea that it is the government that's acting as Big Brother, doesn't it?
I think it's Big Brother as a whole in the UK at the moment. I think the private sector have seen the proliferation of CCTV cameras by the public sector, and there's this kind of eternal myth that CCTV prevents crime from happening. And so it's only a matter of time before the private sector cottoned on to that and started installing private CCTV for their own use. But we're seeing some incredibly sophisticated pieces of technology appearing via the internet. So things to do with facial recognition and cameras that can sense people from miles away. So I think it's only correct that the law catches up with the technology and states how and when these cameras can be used. Because at the end of the day, they're very, very sophisticated and they can form a very intricate picture of everybody's daily lives.
All right, thank you very much, Emma Carr, for that.
The widespread introduction of CCTV over the past 20 years has so far failed to reduce crime, tackle antisocial behaviour, or improve public safety. With the revelation that even school toilets and changing rooms are no longer considered private spaces, the debate on Britain's love affair with CCTV is bound to be reignited.
We're questioning why there is so much surveillance in schools when all the evidence says it does basically nothing to improve the safety of pupils. Is it proportionate to put a camera in a toilet to catch kids maybe doodling something on the wall in biro? Or do we want to say, as a lot of schools have said, that they believe the best way to tackle these problems is to have a relationship with their pupils? And if they put cameras up, that destroys that relationship and the pupils feel that they are suspects and they're being treated like suspects. What concerns us, though, is that the government's plans to regulate these cameras are woefully weak, and the position they're creating to oversee cameras will have absolutely no powers.
6 million CCTV cameras. We are the most watched people in the world, aren't we?
Yeah, there's one study that said we have 1% of the world's population and 20% of the world's CCTV cameras. This is the big debate we haven't had in Britain, is people are saying, I want a camera to protect me. What people don't realise is that the money that's been spent on the camera is probably being diverted from the policing budget. So you don't see police officers, you just see cameras, and they've become a substitute.
Has this government created a big brother state by stealth?
Yes, I think so. I think they've distracted us with all these other sort of things, like the extent to which they go on about certain things that aren't really that important in the media. They give us as much Katie Price as we want, and as long as we're distracted by
bread and circuses.
That's right. But then they're just watching our every move. I think we've got like the most surveillance from anywhere else in Europe, and I just don't know what good it's doing.
They are the big names with our valuable data, are the likes of Apple, Microsoft and Yahoo being dragged into working with the British security services to spy on British people. They deny any collusion, but pressure is mounting on GCHQ and the government.
We take mobile phones for granted, essential for keeping in touch and great in emergencies. But what if they could be used to spy on your every move?
Fresh claims from Snowden that Britain's eavesdropping centre GCHQ is running the biggest operation, tapping fibre optic cables that carry the world's telephone and internet traffic. It's reported hundreds of millions of emails are being sifted and stored for up to 30 days, recordings of our phone calls and entries on our Facebook pages. It's alleged 39 billion separate pieces of information were collected on just one day.
They may be kidding themselves that because the internet is international and because information is crossing borders and coming back again, that they can suggest that this is international snooping and not domestic snooping.
It's a little piece of America in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales. It might look like some kind of theme park, but it's actually a spy base and part of the early warning system for the ever-expanding US missile defence shield.
There's been a base in Menwith Hill since the 1960s, growing all the time, until the site now comprises 33 of those golf ball-like structures. Inside each one, a satellite dish, which collects information from US satellites, but also intercepts the communications of other countries. That information is then fed back to the US and used in what they call intelligence-led warfare, which includes special operations and drone attacks.
It's all about ensuring that they have access to oil and other vital non-renewable resources in Africa, in the Persian Gulf, and we've got to challenge that. We really have to start challenging it before it's too late, because the next stage is probably the attack on Iran.
There's the war on drugs, the war on terror, and now we have the war on the internet. Elaborate, and who benefits from this?
Well, I think the military-industrial complex benefits the most. I mean, this is something that President Eisenhower talked about 50 years ago. And now we have the major corporations, the major entertainment corporations, trying to crack down on the internet, which of course is vital to the free flow of all our information, the free flow of our speech as well.
Right, so just to unpack this phrase military-industrial complex a little bit, because people have used it now so much, it's become, I think it's lost some of its meaning, but when you say military, you're talking about the government, and when you're talking about industrial, you're talking about corporations. So you're talking about fascism.
Well, certainly we're seeing a reclassification of internet activists, as well as activists in the real world, as domestic extremists and, in fact, terrorists.
Now, you were a whistleblower for MI5, and part of the whistleblowing was about domestic surveillance. Much of the population today feels that they have nothing to hide. So what do you think about that response?
It's not about having something to hide, it's about having a right to privacy. Why should the government have access to every aspect of your information, your personal lives? And yet we're sort of offering it up now. We've been groomed by ghastly TV shows like Big Brother, where if you win that, you get onto a C-list celeb lifestyle. Or, for example, Facebook, where again, you're encouraged to offer up all your personal information. So Facebook, for example, is doing precisely the spy's wet dream, gathering the sort of information that we would have been gathering on subversives or domestic extremists. And it's not just the official spies we have to worry about these days. We have the undercover cops, and we also have this explosion of mercenary spy companies, which are sent into the Middle East for security muscle, but also are infiltrating all the activist groups around the planet, including the internet activist groups. Who can you trust?
They're the services we use every day to share our lives online. Messages, photographs, videos, all willingly handed over to companies we've grown to trust. Now it seems those companies in turn are sharing our most personal information with the US government. And it raises questions about whether the British government is accessing it too. Uploading data to the cloud, which in fact means American computer servers, means we can get at our data wherever we are, but it means others can too.
It's something that would make me think twice about updating my status, especially if I'm putting it through work, businesses on Facebook.
If people are looking through my emails, you know, things that you would, like invoicing, like bills, like very personal information that perhaps you don't necessarily want to share. It's not like you're hiding anything per se, but I don't like that news. It's not that welcome.
It would be at the back of your mind when you're, using these networks that there might be someone looking over you, that you're not actually aware of at all.
In fact, the claims made about the NSA suggest companies like Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, Facebook, as well as Apple, are a key part of this surveillance. Officially, the UK government's surveillance powers are strictly limited. If police or intelligence services want the content of emails, texts or phone calls, they have to get a warrant signed by the Home Secretary. But if they only want the so-called metadata, for example, who emailed who and when, they need permission from a senior police officer. But the Internet's global reach increasingly supersedes national rules, making it ever harder for British citizens to control what happens to their information.
I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.